Hey there, 276. Welcome back. This week, our challenge problem is the 6.1 guessing game. Now, everybody, I hope, has played a guessing game before. So, the structure here is going to rely on things that we have seen predominantly in chapters 4, 5, and 6 to get everything done. And just as a quick aside, you do not need any other shall I say, investigated options in order to get the 6.1 challenge to work. If you break everything down into the simplest of parts, and I am trying to help you do that with the way we have the points values set up. They kind of provide a roadmap for you to be able to follow along and kind of visualize what those express parts are. You do not have to do additional research to figure out how to do this problem. That's something I'm going to be looking for when evaluating these. Did you just use things that we have covered in chapters 4, 5, and 6? For the most part, there's chapter 3 and obviously C-ins and C-outs, chapter 2. So just like with everything, this builds on literally everything we have done before, but just one final time, 4, 5, and 6 will get you through this. So some of the rules here are simple. I have attached for you a file down here so you can see. It's all the way down here at the bottom and a little bit out of reach of where the camera control will let me go to. There is a file of names that you can guess from down here that you can use. It is full of Muppet names. If you prefer to use something else, you can go for it. So the names of which it is you guess from, if you do not want to have to make a, here it is, if you do not have to want to make your own file for this, you do not have to. You can nab the file names here. Remember, you can just drag it over or click the upload button for online GDB and boom, you've got those names in there. You can also do this the hard way, which is open the names file.txt, copy them, create a new file in online GDB, call it names.txt, and paste the names into there. Either one of those will get done what you need to get done. So here we have the rules set up. And remember, if you follow your way down the points values here, you can see the important pieces and how it is that you might want to structure your code. So first and foremost, menus. You need to control the flow of the game. Just because we've guessed a name one time or guessed names one time doesn't mean I don't want to try and do this again. So having a menu structure and having a menu structure as part of a function that you call will help flow, or rather control the flow of the game as you are coming through. So menus for 10 points, to start a new game, to quit playing, to view attempts. Just let me know how many times I tried to play. So if I come through and I'm playing the game 3 times, that would be the attempts that you save to the file, how many times I've come through and played. And then all-time wins, let me know how many total guesses I have gotten correct for your game. So that is something you can do with simple math by reading from a file and writing a new response to that file. Functions, because that's what the chapter in fact entails. The following functions are required. You can add more functions to make the game better manageable by you, the developer. These are the required ones and the minimal set that you do have to provide. So that way it fulfills like the needs of like chapter 6 is what we're doing here. So first and foremost, a function to enter a name that you can get from the user. Next, to check that name against those in the file. I know this is the part that trips up the most students because this is the part that gives me or that nets me the most questions from students. And what I will remind you is, if you go back to chapter 5 and look through the code samples, you have already seen this, which means that that is something that you can use to help with the logic for how to do the second function, the check the user entered value against those in the file. Another set of functions for command and control. So like I mentioned before, calling the menu, quitting the game, things of that nature. What you want to do is run the states of the game, how it is that you are actually maintaining the game as you move forward. You want to run all of those things through functions because, well, number one, it is easier. Number two, you will see it again for chapter 7. And really that is how we as developers would structure our code. So it's the next step forward to more, proper stand-up development operations. So those are your 3 function requirements. Remember, you can build more. That's okay. We just have to minimally hit those. Next, we have file operations for 10 points. I know that everybody actually does really well with the baseball challenge from the previous chapter, etc. The reason we have a 10-point value here, which is half the value of the functions, is because everything we do as a developer that we want to have any kind of permanence whatsoever has to be stored into files someplace. So being able to do this, using files here with the game, using the names file, for instance, the all-time wins and the attempts file, for instance, gives you an idea of how it is that you would manage your applications moving forward. How do we give permanence to what it is that we do? So you'll have 3 file operations by and large: read and use name.txt provided, but you do not have to use it. You can use your own names here for the guess. Read and use the game attempts file. Just remember, every time I play a game, increment a counter and store that counter value into the game attempts file. All-time wins file, every time I guess a name correctly, add 1 to the counter, store the total value of the counter into the all-time winners file. Those are your 3 file operations. You've already done these in the baseball, the previous Let's Play a Game for chapter 5, so you can reuse much of that code here. This again is the benefit of modular program design, reusability. You've already gone through and done much of the logic here. It's just finding it from previous challenges and assignments and putting them to use for you here. So next we have loops. Like I mentioned, you've already built many of these. For 20 points, the following are going to be true. So I'm going to look for these to be true. Number 1 is I get 10 attempts per game. So however you want to manage my looping structures is fine, but I want to make sure that as I'm coming through and making the guesses, I get 10 attempts per game. So that's number 1. Number 2 is keep the game running as long as the user wants. Just like with the vending machine, I don't want it to shut off as soon as we're done. I want to be able to keep running and keep guessing even if I failed out the first time. So the game itself is going to be managed inside of one gigantic loop. That is a hint. Do with it what you will. Next is to check the names in the file. I know that we've already talked about the file operations. I know that we've already talked about the functions, but what I am telling you here is you can use a loop to go through the names in the file and to check those against what the user guess is. That's how you get through here. So you've already done much of this. If you go back to chapter 5 in the code samples, you will see an example of this. Do not forget to do so. The very last component here for 20 points is good user design. I am playing a game, and remember that the entire job of the developer is to make it so that the end user wants to continue to use the product. So how do we do that? Number 1, make sure that I, the user, the individual playing the game, knows what's going on. So, good user prompting, good control of the outputs. Think about things like colorized output. Think about things like set width. Think about things that we've seen all along that you can be putting here into that. You will have to do some design here. There are 20 points of value. Simply having cout statements is not necessarily going to get everything done. We need to start stitching everything together. We only have like 4 more weeks here total for the class. So I'm looking for all of those things here. Good user prompting, good use of the space. How can you draw your user's attention to things? Clear instructions and clear feedback as for how it is that we are doing participating in this game. So all of that counts for that 20 points. Through your commentary, through the rest of the semester, I will have been leaving people breadcrumbs on this. So you will have seen in your comments, are there things that we can do better to help manage the user experience? Are there things that you have been doing well to help manage the user experience? All of those things you will have seen comments on. You will have seen examples in our previous challenge problems. You will have seen examples in our previous code samples. So go back and really stitch together a product here. These last two challenge problems here and for chapter 7, what we really want to see is a cohesive product being put together, something that makes sense, something that you can come back and look at and say, yes, I've really made an application, a good product here. So spend some time and really design on this. As with every previous challenge and end of chapter exercise, etc., please message if you have any questions, and good luck 276.